Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Today I'm going to be reviewing Dreams of the Dying by Nicolas Lietzau. This is book 1 of Enderal. And I don't know how many volumes there will be in this series, but it doesn't really matter a whole lot because Dreams of the Dying could be read as a standalone. The story feels complete with a satisfying ending. This review is going to be spoiler-free, by the way. So, Dreams of the Dying is a fantasy, but it has a mystery at its heart, and there are also some horror elements to it as well. It features some really unexpected twists, and for me it was a slow burn at first, for the first half or so, I would say, but ultimately it was a very moving, haunting, and I would say even beautiful read. So one word that I associate very closely with this book, with Dreams of the Dying, is authenticity. And I'll explain what I mean by that when I talk about the themes and the characters. But authenticity is something that I found in loads in this book, and I really appreciated that a lot. So really in terms of the portrayals of the characters and the events and everything else. It felt like, even though it's a fantasy world, it's a made-up world, these felt like characters I could engage with. They felt like people. Their reactions to the events around them felt very real. No one was idealized or anything like that. So I did appreciate that very much. And yeah, those characters are very real and relatable, especially through their struggles. And this is a book that is really sticking with me, and it's keeping me thinking. This is something that I really deeply appreciate. So let's talk about those themes, and I think the big one that I want to sort of talk about right away is depression. Depression is a major theme in Dreams of the Dying. It is central to the story in many ways. This is a story where the inner journey is just as important as the outer journey, and depression is a big part of that. And that includes, by the way, thoughts of suicide. So there are some elements of suicide in the book as well. That's something to be aware of. But I found that, going back to that word authenticity, I really found the struggles of the characters to feel so real to me. And I think anyone who has had a loved one who has gone through depression, or perhaps has gone through depression themselves, could relate to this. But I was reading these characters and their struggles and what they're going through, and at times, of course, I'm identifying with the characters, so I really want them to get help and to be helped. But at the same time, I had this frustration with the characters because of their inability to seek help, because they're paralyzed from their depression. And that is something that just hit me very powerfully. There was a sort of a self-destructive element to these characters who go through this depression, and you can feel the weight of it as the reader. You really can. And it makes sense, because I sense that what is happening is the characters are trying to make their pain make sense. And so I think you'd have to go through depression or know someone who's been through it to understand that, but I hope that makes sense to you. But that seems to be kind of going on in there. So that was a really well done aspect of this, and thoroughly done. I really appreciate that. Another big theme in here is social justice and the nature of a just society. This is something that the characters talk about and wrestle with, and it is central to the events of the story itself. So there's a lot of social hierarchy involved here, and injustice, and the idea of the best way to govern is a central part of this story as well. And there's colonialism in there, as well as social hierarchy and other things. Another big theme in here is identity, including sexuality is done very well in here. It's done in a very subtle, non-intrusive way, so I did appreciate that as well. And there is also our relationship with our dreams and nightmares. When I say dreams, I mean the kind when you're asleep. So yeah, it's a really interesting read because of that, because he does, as the title implies, Dreams of the Dying. There's a lot of stuff about dreams in here, and that is tied very nicely to the magical system as well, and I'll get into that just a little bit later on. But so those are the main themes that I found in here, and I thought they were executed very, very well, and I enjoyed the being immersed in those themes as the story progressed. And it was a bit of a slow burn, honestly, getting going, but in the middle to end of the book, there was a lot of action, and it really did get going, and the pages started turning a bit faster for me. So that was great. And but it's a very thoughtful read. So if you're the type of reader who enjoys engaging and thinking, this could be a really good read for you. So the characters are, as I said before, they feel authentic. They feel like people to me. They're not idealized in any way. They're not uber powerful for the most part, particularly the main character, Jesper. Jesper is a mercenary from far away who arrives on a very strange mission in the archipelago of Calais, which is where the story is set. And Jesper's, where he's from, seems to have kind of a European sort of vibe to it, whereas Calais feels like sort of Asian Pacific to me. Has that vibe going. And the author, Lietzau, does a great job of sort of mixing these cultures, and you can tell that the world is very fleshed out. But yeah, this place, Calais, there are some serious social tensions going on. This has to do with the social hierarchy theme that I was talking about before. And these social tensions are happening between the various classes, the haves and the have-nots, that sort of thing. And it is really worsening to the point of an intense crisis, even as our main character is arriving on the scene. So, Lycia, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I thought it was a beautiful name either way. She's a doctor with a strong sense of social justice. And then there's Kawu, who is a native of Calais, and he is a quiet person whose haunting presence really hints at the immense power in him. There's Jaros Unai, who is the leader of the archipelago, whose power is matched by his talent and is exceeded by his ambition. So these are really well-realized, powerful characters. A lot of the realization happens in the form of flashbacks, and so you're putting together a lot of their personalities through these flashbacks as the story goes along, and I thought that these flashbacks were by and large very well integrated into the story, and they really did contribute to the ongoing mystery as well, because you're putting the mystery together as the reader, as the flashbacks are sort of giving you more knowledge of the characters. So I thought that was very effectively done. And all these characters have their demons, that is for sure. There are some great supporting characters as well. There's Agam, who's kind of my favorite character in the book, I think. But there's also Naima Unai and Engshi and quite a few other smaller minor characters that do their job well of supporting the main cast. As for the prose, I thought the prose was very accessible and even beautiful at times. So I have high marks for the prose. I have just one little nitpicky thing, and this is probably more me as a fantasy reader and my tastes, but the dialogue is very colloquial, so it feels kind of like modern English. And I'm one of those old-timers who likes the archaic type of speech in fantasy, so a la Tolkien or Ursula Le Guin or even George Martin or that sort of thing. I like my fantasy a little stylized, and I think I'm on the losing side of this battle because more and more modern fantasy seems to be in a more colloquial type of speech. So that's fine. That probably isn't something that would bother most readers, I sense. And as I said, the prose is really great. Very, very beautiful at times. And so I really did like the prose. The pacing, as I alluded to earlier, it's solid, but I do think you need to know going in that it won't go fast for the first few hundred pages, that you have to really let yourself sink into this world, and gradually you do feel more and more immersed. And for me, what really got me, what really I appreciated, was the characters and their struggles, and particularly with the depression theme, and it's something that I found myself very moved by. by the end of the book. So it was a slow immersion for me, but is one that I think it's like I said before, it's a story I'm going to be thinking about for quite some time. So really good stuff. So if you don't mind the slow start, there is a portion toward the second half of the book where it goes really fast. And it has an unusually long denouement, a kind of very thoughtful ending to the book that I actually liked a lot. I thought I wasn't going to like it at first, and I ended up thinking, you know what, this is beautiful and perfect. So yeah, you'll have to decide for yourself if you pick up the book, which I would definitely urge you to do. I definitely recommend this one, especially for those of you who like a slightly more thoughtful read. So the last thing I want to talk about just a bit here is the setting, because it is very three-dimensional and very well developed. And this might have something to do with the fact that the Enderal is some kind of, and forgive me for my ignorance here, because I'm just reading the book and I don't play video games, because if I did, I probably wouldn't do anything else. So, but I think that there's a video game thing about Enderal. Maybe some of you would know more than I would about that, but it is something that is referenced in the preface to the book. Yeah, so the world, in other words, just feels very fleshed out and well done, because I think there's been a lot of work done on this world in the video game series. So, and there's really a nice set of appendices in here that are really cool. Lots of illustrations in here, by the way. There's some great artwork in Dreams of the Dying. There's loads of great pictures here in these appendices, portraying some of the important characters. Give you a little peek there. And there are notes, and there's a glossary for the language that was developed in here. So those of you who are language nerds like me, you can check out that. And there's a kind of a working language, the language of Calais in there, which is really cool. That really does flesh out the world nicely. So, and also the magic system is also, I think, very well developed and interesting. I'm not going to say a ton about that. I'll let you discover it for yourself if you read the book, but it was compelling to me. I enjoyed the magic system. There wasn't too much stress. There wasn't too much explanation of how it works, but it felt compelling. Like it felt like I was immersed there, and the magic was working for me in more ways than one. So yeah, this was a great read, and it's definitely a recommendation for me. And I don't know when future books in this series will be published, but this is an author I will definitely want to be checking out in the future. Until next time.